The Milwaukee Bucks have a serious problem, and as the return for Khris Middleton gets more and more foggy, the Milwaukee Bucks are putting themselves in a very desperate situation, and Bucks fans are very concerned about what they've seen from the team so far, but they have some other problems beyond the surface that I'm going to dive into today, so stay tuned for that in this episode, as well as a major Khris Middleton update that might surprise a lot of you. But before we get into all that, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. If you're a part of the 80% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Bucks content. Now, we have a lot to go over. Obviously, the Milwaukee Bucks have been an absolute disappointment thus far. They've been without Khris Middleton, and we have an interesting update on his front, which we'll get into a little bit later. But as you can see there at the bottom of my screen, the Bucks are 1-6. They're 15th in the Eastern Conference, and again, they missed Giannis Antetokounmpo in the last game. They almost won, and there is some positive things for this Milwaukee Bucks team that we've seen, and like in the likes of AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr., some guys like that. But there are some other bigger problems beyond the surface of that. That's what we're going to dive into today, and it's very interesting, and whether that's the coaching staff, there's a lot. You can see this article drop. The Milwaukee Bucks have a sizable problem, and it's plaguing their offense. Milwaukee has a Portis-sized hole on the offensive end. It might just be their undoing. That is a hilarious analogy by this writer. I just want to give a quick shout out to him for that. But you can see this here. It's very interesting, and I'm going to dive into some other things as well. But the Milwaukee Bucks, despite boasting a star-studded roster with second-unit veterans who they were heralded as missing pieces, obviously referring to Taurean Prince and Gary Trent Jr., they are 1-6. And the biggest problem for this team right now is Bobby Portis Jr. Now, again, I don't want to put all the blame on him. He's had some great games, but even in the games where he's been very solid, the reason, and again, Gary Trent Jr. has been the worst player than Bobby Portis. Taurean Prince is arguably worse as well. I'm not saying that Bobby Portis is the reason the Bucks are losing these games, but I don't see a way for a future for the Milwaukee Bucks to win a lot of games when Bobby Portis is their go-to backup power forward. And the reason for that is because of their lack of defense. Coming into the season, the biggest thing was how their defense would hold up in lieu of Jrue Holiday being traded to the Boston Celtics. It didn't look great last season, but we kind of played that off to, hey, it's their first season together, Dame and Giannis, things will work out. Obviously, the injuries in the playoffs. Now, Dame and Giannis are both playing very good basketball. They're one of the leading duos in the NBA, but the team is 1-6 because A, they have no defense in their other supporting cast, and their offense has been extremely suspect. And he's been a net negative to the Milwaukee Bucks offense thus far. And that's the thing. His defense is horrible, but if his offense is making up for it even a little bit, it hasn't happened. According to NBA.com/stats, Portis is posting up for almost a third of his entire offensive diet. He's good for at least 4 post-ups a night, yet only scoring less than a point per possession, which is 21st percentile for that role. He's not playing in the pick and roll. He's demanding post-ups. So when you have guys like Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo on the floor with you and you're posting up, it is one of the worst things you could do. Now, again, Bobby, at times and throughout his Milwaukee Bucks career, he's been a solid spark plug off the bench. He's been able to provide some scoring and some rebounding, and he had a 21-18 game last game against the Cavs when Giannis was out. But even though he put up 21-18, it wasn't a good game for him defensively whatsoever. He obviously gave up the game-winning bucket against Jared Allen, who scored against him, the game-winning layup or dunk, whatever it was. And at this point now, Bobby Portis is kind of just a guy who's, again, he'll give you some spark plugs, but he's been very inefficient. You look at the advanced stats, it's not good. He's posting up way too much, and not only is he posting up, he's not doing much besides that. He's not getting in the pick and roll. He's not getting himself involved, and he's struggling to fit in alongside Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, which is the biggest thing thus far, and it's leading to fans and writers saying it might be time to move on from the underdog. He's logged the worst net rating on the Milwaukee Bucks roster, the 3rd worst defensive rating, and the 4th worst offensive rating. He's been one of the worst players in basketball. And again, this is not the dog on Bobby Portis completely, because there's some other guys who definitely need to be addressed as well. But when you're looking at guys who are supposed to actually have a net positive and have had a net positive in the past, he's not dynamic enough of a player. He's simply just posting up. He's not great in the pick and roll. He's horrible in pick and roll defense. He's horrible at paint defense, and he's horrible at one-on-one defense. So when you're really bad at all defensive aspects and you go out and you still are only posting up, it's not great. You can see here, the article basically says, to be candid, the Bucks need a more dynamic and efficient player in the role next to Dame and Giannis, someone who complements their offensive flow. Now, this was supposed to be in the light of Khris Middleton. It was supposed to be Khris Middleton. Or maybe even, you could argue, it was supposed to be Gary Trent Jr., who isn't going to escape from this situation. He also has been one of the worst players in basketball. He has completely lost his offensive touch. He's lost everything that's made him a good offensive player. He hasn't been able to shoot the ball, but he's been serviceable defensively. We saw it on opening night against Tyrese Maxey, and we've seen it at times, even when Donovan Mitchell hit the game winner over him. He made a good defensive play, and sometimes you just got to tip your cap to the opposing player. But Gary Trent Jr. has been completely washed as well. And what the issue with that is that the Bucks now, without Khris Middleton, with Gary Trent Jr. being bad and Bobby Portis being one of the worst players in the NBA this season, according to stats, it's going to make it so when you have your two-star players in Dame and Giannis who have played fine together, they've played well together, they've started to kind of get some sort of dynamic there and some sort of chemistry, and they've been able to score the ball a lot. Now they're at the point where, hey, these bench players, or in the Gary Trent Jr. starting caliber player, they haven't been able to do anything. So even when Dame and Giannis are playing well, the team doesn't play well, which is why they're 1-6. And speaking of Khris Middleton, Shams came out with a report yesterday saying Khris Middleton is still out indefinitely. He has yet to be cleared for 5-on-5 scrimmaging. Team officials have recognized that this is taking much longer than anticipated. So we're hoping he's going to be back soon. Some other reports came out today. He's working towards 3v3. They're hoping he's not going to play tomorrow, but they're hoping he's going to be able to play, maybe in a couple weeks. But he's out indefinitely, according to Shams. And what that means is the Bucks have to figure this out one way or another, because Khris Middleton's not going to come back and save them right away. He's going to have to get the rust off. He's obviously been training in the offseason. He's been training now throughout the regular season. But he's a 34-year-old aging forward who averaged 15 points a game last season. They're going to need him to really step up. Now, obviously, Giannis has a lot of familiarity with Khris Middleton, which is the biggest factor in this. He knows how he plays, and that can't be said for, obviously, Damian Lillard. He hasn't played with Khris Middleton before, but having another guy who can come in the starting rotation, which moves everybody down a spot, so you'd probably assume that Gary Trent Jr. is going to be sent to the bench, and maybe he now can come out and play a less pressurized role off of the bench, and maybe just come out and be a spark plug offensively and defensively and get something going. But when you see the report that he's out indefinitely, you got to hope and pray that he's going to be back within the near future of some degree, because the Bucks are plummeting, and they're plummeting quick. And again, they need to make some changes. Now, whether that's in the form of getting AJ Green in the lineup instead of Gary Trent Jr., whether that's injecting some youth into the team, I would suspect that there's going to be some big changes tomorrow. I would like to see AJ Green factor into the lineup instead of Gary Trent Jr. That would be the thing and the move that I would do, and have Dame and AJ Green kind of play alongside each other. AJ Green's obviously a point guard. He can play the one guard. He can probably slide over to the two guard as well, like we saw against the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he logged 34 minutes, went 7 for 9 from 3. So there's a lot of different things that they can do here. But the biggest thing, again, as they have their next few games, we know they obviously had the couple games against Cleveland, and they play Utah tomorrow. 2 1-6 teams, 2 of the worst teams in all of basketball. The Bucks need to take care of business. They need to win this game. Whether or not Giannis plays, he's still dealing with his injury. But they have a back-to-back now. So my prediction is they rest Giannis for the game against Utah, and they lock him in and play him against New York on Friday, where if they can win both of these, get back to 3-6, get to a decent record. I mean, 3-6 isn't decent, but decent compared to what they are. Things will be okay as you start to target a Khris Middleton return, and hopefully you have Gary Trent Jr. bouncing back. But let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are on this, because again, the Bucks have 2 of the top 10 scorers in the NBA and are 1-6, so this can't continue to happen. And if it does, the Bucks are going to be in for a long, long season. But let me know down below what your thoughts are. Thank you guys for watching.